All right, so today we're diving into something a little different.
Oh,
Yeah, we're going to be taking a look at Max and Moritz.
okay.
It's a German children's story,
Uh-huh.
and it's known for having a bit of a dark side.
Interesting.
It's a classic, for sure, but it's also got this mischievous undercurrent,
Okay.
exploring pranks and consequences, and how society reacts to people who just break the rules.
I see.
So,
And it's interesting how it does all that in like this framework of a children's tale, right?
right.
It's dealing with these really timeless themes, but it presents them in a way that's captivated audiences like for generations.
Exactly. And the format itself, the rhyming verse,
Yeah.
it adds a whole other layer to the experience.
Uh-huh.
You know, you don't always expect that kind of depth from a story that's aimed at kids.
Right.
But then you get lines like, Max and Moritz, they both made, while they lived, no one happy.
Yeah.
And you realize you're in for something a little different. It's like the author Wilhelm Busch is setting us up for this collision between innocence and mischief right from the start.
Yeah, it's a brilliant setup because it immediately subverts expectations.
Yes.
You think you're entering this lighthearted world of childhood,
Uh-huh.
but Bush is already kind of hinting at these darker impulses
Yeah.
that lurk beneath the surface.
Okay, so let's talk about the first prank, Strike number 1, as they call it in the story.
Okay.
Poor Widow Bolte and her chickens.
Yeah.
They become the first victims of Max and Moritz's scheming.
Yeah.
What struck me here is how Bush makes the prank itself sound almost playful.
Right.
You know, with that sing-song rhyme scheme.
Right.
But then the outcome is anything but.
Exactly. There's this jarring contrast between the lighthearted tone and the actual consequences.
Yeah.
You know, the chickens lured by bread tied to strings
Yeah.
end up tragically tangled and dead.
It's sad.
And that line, flow from the eye, you tears,
Yes.
it really drives home the widow's grief.
Oh, yeah.
Bush doesn't shy away from showing the real pain inflicted by these seemingly childish pranks.
It's almost like he's forcing us to confront this reality.
Right.
That even actions that are intended as fun can have serious, even heartbreaking consequences.
Yeah.
And that contrast becomes even more pronounced in the second prank,
Okay.
when Max and Moritz decide to steal the widow's roasted chickens.
It's interesting how that second prank also introduces this idea of injustice.
Ah.
The dog ends up being blamed and punished for the theft,
Yeah.
even though he's totally innocent.
Right.
Do you think Bush is using this to subtly comment on how easily blame can be misplaced?
It's certainly possible, especially in a society that's quick to judge.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if this seemingly simple children's story is actually like a sharp commentary
Uh-huh.
on the flaws within the adult world.
Right.
And then things take a turn for the physical with Strike number 3,
Okay.
Meister Buck. The tailor gets a rather unpleasant surprise thanks to Max Moritz tampering with a bridge.
This one really highlights their audacity. They saw a gack in the bridge. They knew Meisterbuck used it regularly.
Right.
And then they taunt him with animal sounds as he falls into the stream.
I know, it's kind of messed up.
It's almost as though they derive pleasure from his misfortune.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely pushing the boundaries of what we consider harmless pranks,
Right.
and yet there's still that element of dark humor.
Yeah.
Frau Buck revives her soaking wet husband with a hot iron.
With a hot iron.
It's just so absurd.
Pretty funny.
You almost have to laugh.
That absurd humor is definitely one of the things that makes the story so unique. It's like Bush is constantly playing with our expectations, walking this tightrope between horror and hilarity.
Right.
And then, of course, things escalate even further with Strike number 4.
Yes.
And Cor Lemple, the teacher.
This is where the consequences become genuinely serious.
Yeah.
Max and Moritz tamper with his pipe, stuffing it with gunpowder.
Gunpowder.
The explosion is described so vividly.
I know, I love that part.
Boom! There goes the pipe with a roar. Terribly great.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just a harmless prank anymore.
No.
There's real potential for harm.
And it's not just the physical harm to Lara Lemple.
Yeah.
Think about the disruption to the school,
Right.
to the children's education.
Yeah.
It raises questions about the limits of acceptable behavior,
Uh-huh.
especially when it comes to those in positions of authority.
Right.
Is Bush suggesting that even those meant to teach and guide
Yeah.
can become victims of youthful recklessness?
It's a provocative thought, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then they turn their attention to family.
Oh, no.
Strike number 5 takes aim at their Uncle Fritz, and let's just say I wouldn't want to be in his shoes.
What did they do?
Maybugs under the blankets.
Oh, my God.
It's enough to give anyone nightmares.
Oh, that's awful.
This prank feels particularly personal.
Yeah, it is.
It's a violation of trust and respect within a family setting.
Huh.
Uncle Fritz, an elder, deserves a certain level of deference. But Max Moritz seemed determined to upend that traditional hierarchy.
Yeah, they really do.
Do you think this prank might be saying something about the changing dynamics
Oh, interesting.
between generations in 19th century Germany? A subtle rebellion against the old ways.
That's a fascinating angle.
It's like they're testing the limits of not just social rules, but familial ones as well.
I see.
And then, because apparently no one is safe,
Oh.
scratch number 6 takes us to the bakery.
The bakery. What happened there?
Pretzels, chimneys, and a whole lot of dough.
Oh.
It's almost cartoonish in its absurdity.
And yet, even in this seemingly lighter prank,
Yeah.
there's a hint of danger.
Oh, yeah.
They're trapped in the oven baking along with the bread.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that their actions, while often meant to be humorous, can quickly spiral out of control.
Okay, so we've seen them target authority figures,
Right.
family members, even innocent bystanders. But their final strike takes things to a whole new level.
Yep.
Farmer Mech and his sack of grain become the focus of their mischief. And this time there's a sense that things are about to get real.
This act of vandalism feels like a direct attack
Yeah.
on the community's livelihood.
Right.
Grain, the very source of sustenance, is carelessly scattered and wasted.
It is.
It's a transgression that goes beyond mere mischief. It's
Right.
a challenge to the very fabric of their rural society.
And their capture is swift and decisive.
Yeah, it is.
Bauer Mech, no fool,
Right.
catches them red-handed and marches them off to the mill.
To the mill.
The scene at the mill is where things get truly dark, wouldn't you say?
It's the climax of the story, and Busch deliberately leaves the ending ambiguous.
Yes.
The lines, rick-rack, goes to the mill with a cracking.
Oh, yeah.
Leave us wondering about their fate. Are they killed?
Yeah.
Taught a severe lesson?
Who knows?
The uncertainty is unsettling, especially given the lighthearted tone of the earlier pranks.
It's like he's forcing us to confront this uncomfortable truth. That even actions that start as childish pranks can have irreversible consequences.
And that ambiguity might also reflect something deeper about the culture that produced this story.
I see.
What does it say about 19th century Germany that a children's book
Right?
could end on such an unresolved note?
Yeah.
It makes you think about societal attitudes towards punishment justice, and maybe even the darker side of human nature itself.
Yeah, it really does.
It does.
Wow. That ambiguous ending, it really sticks with you, doesn't it?
It does.
I mean, we've spent this whole time watching Max and Moritz's antics.
Right.
And as much as they push the boundaries, there's still this part of you that wonders if they really deserve that kind of fate.
It's a testament to Busch's skill as a storyteller that he can evoke such complex emotions
Right?
with a seemingly simple children's tale.
Yes.
And it's that ambiguity that makes the story so ripe for discussion. Is this just a cautionary tale about the consequences of bad behavior? Or is there something more going on here?
Yeah, I'm leaning towards something more.
Okay.
Especially when you consider how Busch portrays the villagers' reactions to the boy's disappearance.
Yeah.
It's not just a simple good riddance scenario.
Right.
There are layers of relief, reflection, even a touch of melancholy mixed in.
Absolutely. Take Widow Bolt, for example.
Okay.
She's the first victim of their pranks. Yet her response, "See there? I thought so all along,"
Yeah.
isn't exactly celebratory.
No, it's not.
It's almost as though she expected this outcome,
Uh-huh.
which is a pretty bleak commentary on how society viewed children like Max and Moritz.
It makes you wonder if she sees a bit of herself in them.
Right.
A flicker of that same rebellious spirit
Yeah.
that maybe got subdued by the realities of life. Then you have Meisterbuch,
Oh, yeah, Meisterbuch.
who takes a more philosophical approach.
Yeah.
Declaring that wickedness has no purpose in life.
His statement could reflect the rising intellectualism of the time.
Okay.
This growing emphasis on reason and order.
I see.
Max and Moritz, with their chaotic pranks,
Yeah.
represent a threat to that worldview. They embody the impulsive, the irrational, the forces that disrupt a carefully constructed social order.
But even within that disruption,
Yeah.
isn't there a sense that Busch is also poking fun at the rigidity of that order?
Oh, absolutely.
Meister Buck, with his dramatic fall into the stream,
No, right?
almost becomes a caricature of the uptight, rule-bound adult.
That's such a great point.
It's like Busch is using the boys' pranks to expose the hypocrisy and absurdity within the adult world.
Exactly. And Lara Limple, with his insistence that this is all a teaching moment, also falls into that category.
Yeah.
He's so focused on the moral lesson that he misses the underlying social commentary.
And then you have the baker.
Oh, the baker.
Who, with his darkly humorous question, why is man so tasty?
Oh, yeah.
Adds a whole other layer to the mix.
It's unsettling.
Yeah, for sure.
But it also forces us to confront the darker impulses that exist within all of us, even those who appear to be pillars of the community.
It's a reminder that the line between order and chaos, between civilization and our baser instincts, is perhaps thinner than we'd like to believe.
Right.
Even Uncle Fritz, a victim of the Maybug prank.
Yeah, poor Uncle Fritz.
Can't help but offer his observation. That comes from stupid jokes.
Yeah.
I find his comment particularly interesting because it suggests a recognition of the boys' immaturity, but also an understanding that their actions, however misguided, stem from something deeper than mere malice.
It does.
It's as though he sees a bit of himself in their youthful folly.
Yeah.
And that brings us to Bauer Mecha's reaction, or rather, lack thereof. His simple, what do I care about that?
Oh, yeah.
Stands in stark contrast to the other villagers' more introspective responses.
I know, it's interesting, isn't it?
It's almost as if he represents the pragmatic side of rural life, the focus on survival and the harsh realities of a world where sentimentality takes a backseat to practicality.
Yeah.
Max and Moritz to him are just another problem to be dealt with, another disruption to the daily grind.
Which, in a way, makes his reaction the most unsettling of all.
Yes, it does.
It suggests a world where compassion and empathy are secondary to maintaining order and efficiency.
It's bleak.
And that bleakness is further emphasized by the final lines of the story.
Yeah.
Thank God. Now it is over with the evil doing.
There's this overwhelming sense of relief.
Yes.
But it's also a relief tinged with sadness. A recognition that the world is perhaps a little less vibrant.
Yeah.
A little less interesting. Without Max and Moritz's brand of chaos.
And that's the genius of Busch's work. He doesn't offer easy answers or simplistic moral judgments.
No, he doesn't.
He presents us with this complex tapestry of human emotions, societal pressures, and the consequences of actions that spiral out of control.
It's like he's holding up a mirror to 19th century Germany, exposing its flaws, its hypocrisies, but also its underlying humanity.
And the fact that this story continues to resonate with audiences today speaks to the timelessness of those themes. Mischief, rebellion, the clash between generations, the struggle to find one's place within a rigid social order.
It's very relatable.
These are universal experiences that transcend cultural boundaries.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But there's also the way Busch uses language.
Oh, yeah.
That rhyming verse?
Yeah.
That's both playful and unsettling.
It's great.
It adds a whole other layer to the storytelling, making it memorable, engaging, and strangely addictive.
It's like he's using that sing-song rhythm to lull us into a false sense of security, and then bam! He hits us with these images of cruelty, absurdity, and ultimately tragedy.
It's powerful.
It's a masterful blend of style and substance.
So we've talked about the social context, the literary techniques, but I'm also curious about the psychological implications of this story.
Okay.
Do you think Max and Moritz could be seen as a commentary on the darker side of human nature?
Yeah.
Is there a part of us that secretly identifies with the boys' mischievous impulses, even as we condemn their actions?
That's a brilliant question.
Thanks.
And I think the answer is a resounding yes.
Okay.
There's something undeniably appealing about their rebellious spirit, their willingness to challenge authority, their gleeful disregard for the rules. It taps into a primal instinct that we all possess, that urge to break free from constraints, to test boundaries, to disrupt the status quo.
Like we're simultaneously horrified by their cruelty and strangely drawn to their audacity.
Exactly. And that duality is what makes Max and Moritz such a fascinating and enduring work.
Yes.
It forces us to confront the complexities of our own nature, the tension between our desire for order and our fascination with chaos.
And perhaps it also makes us question whether society's attempts to suppress those impulses are ultimately beneficial
Right.
Or if there's a way to channel that energy into something more constructive.
That's a thought-provoking idea.
It makes me think about how we approach education discipline and even creativity.
Yeah.
Are we too focused on stamping out mischief, on enforcing conformity, that we miss the opportunity to harness that energy for good?
It's like Max and Moritz, in their own twisted way,
Yeah.
are a reminder that a little bit of chaos can be a catalyst for growth, for change, for a re-examination of the rules that govern our lives.
As we've been talking about Max and Moritz, I keep coming back to the idea of childhood itself.
Okay.
This story, despite its darkness, it seems to offer a pretty insightful look at just the complexities of being a kid.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think?
It challenges this romanticized notion of childhood innocence that was so prevalent in the 19th century and even lingers today. Max and Moritz, with all their flaws, force us to acknowledge that children aren't simply empty vessels just waiting to be filled with adult wisdom.
They're active agents in their own lives.
Exactly.
Driven by impulses and desires that don't always fit neatly into our adult conceptions of right and wrong.
And their mischief, while often destructive, it also reveals a certain ingenuity. A creativity that might be stifled by a society that prioritizes obedience above all else.
That's a good point.
Think about like the elaborate contraptions they create for their pranks, the clever use of everyday objects to achieve their aims.
It's like Busch is suggesting that there's a certain brilliance within that chaos, a potential that could be harnessed for good if given the proper outlet. Instead, Max and Moritz are constantly met with punishment, with condemnation, with adults who fail to see beyond the surface of their actions.
And that, I think, is where the real tragedy lies. Not necessarily in their ultimate fate, but in the missed opportunity to understand and guide these children towards a more productive path. It makes you wonder how differently things might have turned out if the adults in their lives had approached them with more empathy, more curiosity, rather than simply resorting to punishment.
So rather than seeing Max and Moritz as just a simple condemnation of bad behavior, maybe it's actually a plea for a more nuanced understanding of childhood itself.
I think that's a brilliant interpretation.
Thanks.
Busch, through his darkly comedic tale, is challenging us to see the world through the eyes of a child, to recognize the complexities of their inner lives, and to question whether our methods of discipline are truly serving their best interests.
It's like he's asking us to consider whether a society that crushes mischief and enforces strict conformity is ultimately creating a world where true creativity and individuality are stifled.
And that's a question that continues to resonate today.
It does.
As we grapple with issues of education, child development, and the pressures of modern life, Max and Moritz serves as a timeless reminder of the importance of understanding and nurturing the unique potential within each child.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into this fascinating and often unsettling story, I'm left with this sense of hope, a belief that by engaging with its complexities, we can move towards a more compassionate and insightful approach to raising the next generation.
And perhaps, just perhaps, we can learn to embrace a little bit of that Max and Moritz spirit within ourselves, to channel that mischievous energy into something that challenges the status quo and pushes the boundaries of creativity and innovation.
After all, a world without a little mischief might be a bit too predictable. A bit too dull.
Yeah, it would be.
We encourage you, our listener, to continue exploring this timeless tale. And to draw your own conclusions about its lasting significance.
It's a great story.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Max and Moritz.